California took a lot of flack from critics when it adopted tight rules on carbon emissions 8 years ago. Well, yesterday, the feds took a page from the state's environmental playbook. For the first time, the Environmental Protection Agency issued new rules for power plants to cut emissions 30% by 2030. The nation's nearly 1,000 plants are responsible for 40% of carbon emissions. Joining me to discuss the new rules are UC San Diego professor David Victor, who is director of the Laboratory on International Law and Regulation, and Kayla Race, policy advocate for the Environmental Health Coalition. Professor Victor, you were a top contributor to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, which said recently that despite the increase in policies, emissions are growing at a faster rate than any other time since the early 1970s. Given that backdrop, how significant are these new EPA rules?
Well, this is a big deal. The market on its own has already cut U.S. emissions about 15%, mainly because of greater use of natural gas, which is cleaner than coal. And these rules will cut another 15% on top of that. And most importantly, what they do is they make credible the promise that the United States has made to other countries that we're going to do something about our emissions. And then we can expect other countries, China, India, the Europeans, Japanese, and so on, to do something about their emissions as well. And this is the only way we can really tackle the global warming problem, because it's a global problem and requires cooperation among all the countries on the planet ultimately.
Kayla, the state's energy regulators this year approved another fossil fuel plant for California. It's going to be in San Diego County. It's in Otay Mesa. It's called Pio Pico. How does the state's reputation as an environmental trailblazer jibe with this approval?
Yeah, we're seeing a trend, unfortunately, of the utilities proposing and building dirty natural gas power plants throughout the state and in Southern California, and it's problematic in meeting our clean energy goals and in addressing climate change. And the problem is that we have the solutions, especially here in Southern California, to reduce pollution with resources like local clean energy, local solar, energy storage, but we're seeing those efforts thwarted, and so it's time to take local action and local control of our energy resources with a climate action plan in San Diego.
Why are those efforts being thwarted?
You know, it's not really clear why they're being thwarted. It's hard to make change, but we have the tools here, and we need to start utilizing them. It's clear from the droughts we've seen recently, the heat waves, the wildfires, that delay is really not an option, and it's costing us more and more. So we think it's time to take local action with clean energy and keep building these power plants.
Professor Victor, House Speaker John Boehner called this new EPA plan nuts. Now, President Obama went ahead with this plan without getting congressional approval. Does the law give him and the EPA the authority to implement these new rules unilaterally?
Probably yes. In fact, the EPA has a legal obligation now, because of an earlier Supreme Court case, to treat carbon dioxide as a pollutant, which is the main cause of global warming, treat it as a pollutant and then to regulate it under the Clean Air Act. And this proposal is the last in a series of regulations under the Clean Air Act that would affect now existing power plants. There's been, over the last few days, just hyperbolic commentary on all sides about this. Some people see this as a gigantic jobs creation machine, which is probably not correct. Other people, especially the far-right Republicans, see this as a massive job-killing scheme, or some people have commented about the possibility we won't be able to get electricity. This is a middle-of-the-road plan. It looks to be achievable. It's going to require the states to do lots of different things: improve the efficiency of existing power plants, switch to gas a little bit, switch to renewables. In fact, probably have more of these peaker plants, because those are an intrinsic part of an electric power system that uses a lot of variable and intermittent renewable supply like wind. It is within relatively easy task to implement this over the course of the next 15 years.
Kayla, the EPA predicts that if these rules are implemented, that something like 7,000 premature deaths will be prevented, as well as 150,000 asthma attacks among children by the year 2030. How common are these pollution-related illnesses in our region?
Yes, pollution-related illnesses are a serious problem, especially in our low-income communities of color in San Diego, like in Barrio Logan, National City, City Heights. And we need to take efforts to reduce pollution from all sectors, both the energy sector and the transportation sector, as well as the industrial sector here in San Diego. So these proposals from the EPA are very exciting, and we hope that we'll take local action to go and make our energy sources even cleaner with solar and efficiency and conservation and storage.
Professor Victor, what else do governments across the globe need to do to stem climate change?
Well, at the end of the day, this is a global problem, and so this is all about getting global emissions down. And so a place like California can play a role by offering a leadership position, or by leading, but California is only 1% of global emissions, and so we need to work with other countries, help them identify first policies that meet their own local interests, like cutting back on air pollution, and then also generate global benefits in terms of lower global warming pollution. And I'm actually pretty optimistic about that. The Chinese have moved a lot in this area, India, a handful of other countries, and so we're making a little bit of progress. It won't be enough to stop global warming, but we're starting to make some progress.
And we're going to wrap it there. Professor Victor, Kayla, thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you.